We just received a letter from the Blackstone Watershed Relay people congratulating us on the work we've done and giving us new challenges. The blue team's challenge is to learn about the history of transportation in, on, over, and around the river. Some of the team will focus on the earliest transportation, some on bridges, and some on the Blackstone Canal. The green team's challenge is to investigate aquatic plants. Aquatic plants are plants that live in the water.
Look at this place.
Oh my god, it's so cool. I love it here.
What is that?
Whoa, look at that. Oh my god, we both saw it. So cool.
I think we're here on the West River.
Wait, what are we doing?
We're looking for the 3 types of water plants. Remember, submerged, emergent, and floating leaf.
Let's go see what's on the other side of that bridge.
Okay.
Look at that plant.
It's huge.
I did a research project on them last year. They're called cattails.
Why are they called cattails?
Do you see the big puffy thing on top?
Yeah.
Well, it looks kind of like a cat's tail.
Have humans ever used cattails for anything? They look useful.
Hold on, let me check my book. Native Americans ground the cattail stems into meal. The flowers were eaten like corn on the cob, and the pollen used for baking. Cattail leaves were great weaving material for mats, baskets, and chair seats. The other impressive thing is that a cattail stalk holds about 220,000 seeds.
These cattails sound really interesting. Let's bring one back to school and look at it under the microscope.
Sounds great.
Man, it's a lot noisier here next to the road.
Whoa, look at those big green plants on top of the water. They must be floating leaf plants.
Remember, those are water lilies. We saw them while we were canoeing Lake Wildwood.
I wonder how water lilies adapted to river and marsh life.
Water lilies adapt to river and marsh life, having the leaves flat on the water so the current doesn't rip the leaves.
That's cool.
I was thinking about what my Aunt Matilda told me about the adaptations of aquatic plants. Now it makes sense.
What did she tell you?
Well, she told me how aquatic plants are like whales.
Like whales?
Yeah, like whales. All life started out and evolved in water. After millions and millions of years, water animals evolved into amphibians, like salamanders, so that they could live on both land and in the water. After I talked with my Aunt Matilda, I made a sketch. After amphibians, reptiles and mammals evolved. They could live on land, but were still dependent on water to drink.
You mean like us? We live on land and need water?
Yeah, whales' ancestors were also mammals, but they evolved so that they could live in the water to take advantage of the unused food resources.
I still don't get the connection to aquatic plants.
Oh, I made another sketch. Aquatic plants also started out in water. After time, they evolved so that they could live on land, and then evolved again so that they could live in the water again.
I think we should head back to school and see if we can find out more about aquatic plants and how they adapt.
Plants turn out to be more interesting than I thought they were. I found out something unusual about water lilies. I made these models to help illustrate it. This model shows how the water lily leaf is on the surface of the water and stem goes down through the water into the ground to where the roots are. This other model, which is an enlargement of a small part of the water lily leaf, these are the stomata that let air in and out of the leaf. These are the guard cells that make the holes open and close. The unusual thing about water lilies is that they have the stomata on the tops of the leaves instead of the bottoms.
Water lilies and other aquatic plants don't usually have problems getting enough water. They have problems getting enough air. So, if you have leaves that float on top of the water, having stomata on the top of the leaf is a good adaptation.
Yep.
You know how it's hard for a submerged plant to get oxygen and carbon dioxide because the leaves aren't sticking out of the water into the air.
Yeah, submerged means completely underwater.
The key to getting oxygen and carbon dioxide is the leaves. The leaves absorb the oxygen and carbon dioxide from the water as it's moving past them.
So the leaves kind of act like sponges for the oxygen and carbon dioxide that's dissolved in the water.
Then why don't the plants have bigger leaves? Wouldn't they be able to absorb more oxygen?
Actually, Joe, bigger leaves don't help. See, if the leaf gets too big, then it slows down the water that's moving past the leaf. That reduces the amount of water that will move past the leaf.
How do you keep the leaf from getting too big?
It's really cool. Submerged plants use something called apoptosis.
Apoptosis? That reminds me of hippos.
It may remind you of hippos, but it doesn't work like that. Apoptosis is the programmed death of certain cells so that the leaf doesn't get too big.
The plant kills its own cells?
Sounds crazy, but it's true. And that's what helps the plant get the oxygen and carbon dioxide it needs.
Cattails live on the edges of ponds and rivers or in marshes, wet places, so the roots are in soil that's completely filled up with water with no room for air. But the roots need oxygen too, so cattails use something called a parenchyma to get air down to their roots.
What are anenchyma, parencia, whatever you said?
Parenchyma are small air spaces in the stalk of the cattail. Air can travel through those spaces from the leaves all the way down the stem to the root zone. Here, have a look. I have a piece of a cattail stalk here for you guys to see.
Whoa, this is really cool looking. I can see the air spaces clearly. Do they travel all the way down the stalk?
Yes, the parenchyma are in the center of the stalk. There are air spaces all over the middle.
So, all three of these aquatic plants have adapted to living in water by having special arrangements for getting air.
Sort of like the way that the whales adapted to breathing through a blowhole when they evolved to live in water.
Just like my Aunt Matilda said.
Our challenge was to learn about aquatic plants on the West River and share the knowledge we learned.
So first of all, aquatic plants are plants that live in water.
To learn more about aquatic plants on the West River, we took a trip down the West River to see what kinds of plants live there. Well, we got to a part of the river where it was really hard to paddle.
Yeah, and when we lifted up the paddle, we found it was covered with these things. They were obviously aquatic plants, but they had taken over the whole section of the river. When we got back to Bobby's house, I went on the internet to try and find out what they were, and Bobby and Sarah looked in the field guides.
It turns out that they were water chestnuts, which are invasive, non-native aquatic plants.
Invasive means that they take over wherever they go, making it almost impossible for other kinds of plants to live there. Non-native means that they come from a different ecosystem, which is bad because they usually have no natural predators. In other words, it means that nobody in their new environment wants to eat them. So that means that invasive, non-native aquatic plants are really bad news. Sometimes people forget that native plants are really good in their habitat. They provide food, oxygen, shelter, and help prevent erosion. Invasives interfere with those functions.
Invasives really take over, like in that part of the West River that we saw. When we saw it, we almost couldn't believe that it was happening.
Water chestnuts are a nasty plant. They're really well adapted to take over. They have spiky seeds that animals can't eat and can last in the mud for up to 9 years. They have air bladders in the stems which allow them to float on the surface of the water and get plenty of light. This can cut off light for submerged plants.
Plus, there's only 2 ways to get rid of them. One is to pick them by hand, and the other is to use a harvester.
The Blackstone Watershed Association decided to get a grant for a mechanical harvester, but the harvester doesn't fit in some places along the West River.
Wow, these are really nasty looking seeds. If you don't pick water chestnuts by hand in spring before they grow these seeds, then they can fall out and start growing again the next season.
And what about purple loosestrife?
Purple loosestrife has been around for 200 years. It grows over 4 feet tall, and it's really common. It comes in pinks and, of course, purple. They have beautiful flowers, and each plant can produce 1 to 3 million seeds every year. That means it can spread really quickly. Well, you might think, what's wrong with that? I mean, they look pretty neat. But they crowd out cattails. And if they crowd out cattails, that means the animals that depend on cattails have to leave. For example, muskrats depend on cattails for food and as building materials for their lodges. If the cattail leaves the area, then muskrats have to leave or die.
A lot of people see a pretty plant, like purple loosestrife, pick it and take it home, and accidentally drop it in a different waterway. Well, that's a big mistake.
So let me get this straight. Some people think an invasive is pretty until it is taken over.
Yeah, and that can be pretty bad news for the environment and the community.
I know, some people get so mad when it's hot and they can't swim because the water's choked with invasives.
Yeah, and that's not all. Invasives can cost a lot to control, and that's why the Weed Watchers program started.
Weed Watchers, what's that?
Weed Watchers is a volunteer organization that's working hard to protect Massachusetts water bodies. They have many programs like boat ramp monitors and...
What's a boat ramp monitor?
Boat ramp monitors are people who check boats coming in and going out of infested waters.
It's important if you go into infested waters that you check for any hitchhikers.
What are hitchhikers?
Plants and animals that get in or on your boat.
Weed Watchers trains people to look for invasives and eliminate them in a way that's not really expensive.
Cool. Where can people learn more about Weed Watchers?
Yeah, there might be people watching who want to learn more.
Well, you can go to www.mass.gov/lakesandponds.com, and when you get there, click on Weed Watchers.
That studio shoot was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know how the blue team was working on transportation in the Blackstone Valley?
You mean the canals and the bridges in Millville and the Native American Indians?
Yeah. And as they were telling us about it, I thought that maybe the faster that humans travel, the faster that invasive species can travel with us.
Also, the way humans have built so many devices and inventions, it sort of reminds me of the adaptations of plants.
But humans make stuff and change their environment instead of just adapting to it like plants do. And you can really see that in the Blackstone Valley.
Hi, Robert.
Oh, hi. Wow, now I really understand why they needed a canal.
Why?
Because the roads were muddy and bumpy and slow. It cost as much to ship goods from Worcester to Providence as it did to ship from England all the way over the sea to Providence.
So basically, it was cheaper to send goods by water than by land?
Exactly, that's why they built a canal.
Hey, let's go outside and look around the park. It looked pretty neat.
Cool, okay.
Yeah.
Hey guys, that's a map that I was telling you about.
Oh, wow. Oh, this is a perfect example of what I was telling you up there. Here's the Massachusetts and Rhode Island border, and here's Worcester, and here's Providence. It looks like we're right around here, and there's Boston. And this is a perfect example of what I was saying because Worcester's here, and with connections to Providence here, Boston's all alone over here, and, left out of the deal.
My name is Val, Bulk Interpreter here along the Blackstone River and Canal. Can I help you with anything?
We're from Touchstone Community School in Grafton. I'm Robert, and this is Melanie and Kale.
Oh, you're working on one of those challenges on the watershed. Would you like to take a walk along the towpath? Well, the river looks good for canoeing, but can you imagine a large boat being able to be controlled with that current?
How did the canal boats get up or down steep slopes in the canal? I mean, the canal dropped the same amount as the river did.
That's right. And back at the visitor center, we have a model of a canal lock, and we can demonstrate how those canal boats can travel on flat water, be lifted 10 feet, and travel on flat water from Providence to Worcester. From Worcester to Providence, the canal boats would travel down the Blackstone, and through a series of locks, lift locks, they would be able to descend at 450 feet. With our model, which we do see a boat, and a mighty fine boat it is, with the water level the same as the basin above and the water in the chamber. Our boat can navigate right into our lock. Our lock tender, who's attending to this lock, would close up the gates, the upper gates. Now, to lower our boat or to raise it, we would need to, through gravity feed, adjust the water level. And through a wicket gate, we can open a valve to drain the water. In a real lock on the canal, it would be a 4-minute process to drain the lock chamber. I think the lock chamber is drained. The tender and some of the crew members would open the lower gate and allow the boat to continue on after it has dropped 10 feet and continue its journey downstream.
I noticed you had a painting of a canal boat over there.
Let's go take a look at it. It's an artist's rendition showing a horses pulling a packet boat, which would carry passengers as well as some freight.
I noticed in the exhibit that the canal was only operating for about 20 years.
Well, that is true. It was built near the end of the canal era on the dawn of the railroad era of transportation. And the canal was eventually replaced functionally as well as physically by a railroad between Providence and Worcester.
But all these ways of transportation started with the river in a way. I mean, first, people traveled along the river, then they borrowed water from the river to make the canal, and then we found even faster ways of traveling. But the cities at the top and bottom of the river are still important.
So where are we going again?
We're going to Millville, where I live, because there's an important bridge there.
Really?
Yeah, there's this one bridge over the Blackstone River, and it was under construction for a while, so it was only a pedestrian bridge, so you couldn't drive over it, and we had to drive 12 miles just to cross the river. There's a lot of historical evidence there. My mom gave me this brochure, and it says you can see the Blackstone Canal, or the ruins of the Blackstone Canal, the east and west branch of the Blackstone River, a stone arch that used to be part of a mill, and a small 2-acre island just from the bridge.
Well, I think it'd be cool. It could really help us learn about the transportation on and across the Blackstone River.
Wow, I observed so much.
Yeah, I was watching them build the new bridge. It was really interesting. I never knew it took so much effort.
Yeah, I was watching the old bridge and stuff. It was really kind of neat. I learned a lot, but it was just kind of confusing. I mean, so much happening under one bridge.
Well, this is a lot like a puzzle. We have a lot of pieces, but there's still a lot missing.
I see what you mean. We have some of the puzzle, but we don't have it all. Maybe we could do some more research.
Okay, let's get started on our rehearsal. We should pretend that we have an audience too, so.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So,
Audience is over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is a model that we will use to teach you about bridges.
Our model focuses on the section of the Blackstone where it cuts through the area that is now known as Millville. We're focusing on the place where Central Street crosses the Blackstone.
This direction is north, this direction is south, and the river is flowing this way.
First, there's just the natural terrain. The Blackstone River with a little island in the middle. The island divides the river into two channels. Native American Indians live in the area, but they don't disturb much. Then, European Americans from other parts of New England started to settle in this area. They built custom mills on the island. The island was a great spot for mills because the elevation of the river drops a lot around here, and that causes the water to flow very swiftly. So swiftly that it must have been impossible to wade across. So, a small bridge was built so that people could access the mills on the island. Then, in 1732, a man named Samuel Thompson, who owned a mill on the island, made a deal with the town. He said he would maintain this bridge here if the town would build and maintain a bridge over the other side of the river. This deal helped the mill business a lot because people could access the mills on the island a lot easier.
In the 1820s, the canal was built. Ta-da! The canal transported raw materials and finished goods up and down the Blackstone Valley. And guess what comes next? Yeah, another bridge to go over the canal. The custom mills are joined by factory mills by this time. And so factory mills are bigger than custom mills, or bar, and had a lot more people working in each mill. They were running out of space for the factory mills, so Millville decided to make a raceway. Raceways are man-made branches of a river that are designed to move the power of the river away from what would normally be the riverbed. 20 years after the canal was made, a railroad was built about here. And there's another bridge, of course, to go over the railroad.
We saw evidence of all these things when we went to Millville. Well, everything except for the mills, they're not there anymore. They're mainly just ruins now. But we're just fascinated by the way that everything fits together just like a puzzle. But it's really complicated. The 4 bridges over here, they look like they're just one bridge paved over with one surface.
Now I'm going to bring us up to the present. Through the 1800s and 1900s, the bridge system continued to be maintained and brought up to date, and some of the bridges were rebuilt. Anyway, the engineers decided to rebuild the bridges, and I realized that there's a lot more involved in the construction and maintenance of bridges than I ever realized before.
Yeah, we really take bridges for granted. I mean, we go over them all the time, and they're really important in our lives, and they really help us get where we need to go a lot faster. And they're especially important if you live near a river.
Yeah, especially if you live in New England where there are rivers everywhere.
What you looking at, Kayla? See that big rock over there in the river? Yeah. There are smaller rocks behind that one. It was used as a crossing place by Native American Indians. Let's go check it out. Yeah. Be careful, it's slippery. Hi, are you Kevin Clyburn?
Yeah, you guys must be the group from Touchstone.
Yeah. What are you doing here?
Oh, I just decided to take a walk while I was waiting for you.
Yeah, you suggested that we come here to learn more about transportation in the Blackstone Valley, for our Blackstone Watershed Challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great place to find out about early transportation here in the Blackstone Valley. Were you guys coming down to take a look at the waiting place?
Yeah. I told them that Native American Indians could just walk across the water because it was so shallow. And you said they also fished here?
Yeah, that's right. Used to have kinds of fish like salmon and alewife and herring that would come up the river in the springtime to spawn, to lay their eggs. And so the Native Americans would come to shallow spots like this, and they would build these walls called weirs, so it would cut down the channel of the river, and then they would spread these nets they made out of cattails across those openings to catch all the fish. Yeah, you guys really seem to know a lot about this stuff.
We memorized everything.
Well, the earliest European settlers would follow the old Native American trails. Those trails ran along the river, and some of them went over the river as well. They wanted to be able to use animals and to pull carts and wagons, so they had to smooth out the roads and make them wider so they could use them. One of the first places they did that actually was on a ridge line up along the river here, and they built a road that went from Providence all the way up to Mendon, Massachusetts. That's called the Great Road.
Oh, is it still there?
Yeah, actually there are still parts of that that are going, including parts of Route 146A and Route 122.
What happened when the settlers needed to get across the river?
They would just take their wagons and the animals and just walk them right across the river.
What's that white building over there?
That's our museum, the Kelly House. Maybe you guys could try to find some different kinds of transportation. I think you should be able to find at least 5.
Like a treasure hunt?
Like a treasure hunt.
Well, I can only see one kind of transportation, the train tracks. Do you know where they go to? Yeah, they go all the way from Worcester, Massachusetts to Providence, Rhode Island. And the highway, which actually crossed at the same point where the Native Americans crossed. That's so cool, that sort of connection between modern transportation and transportation a long time ago. Yeah. This bike path. Bikes are another form of transportation. Well, that's 3. Kevin said we could find 5 kinds of transportation. Okay, maybe we can find some more in the woods. Okay. Look, what's that? I don't know. Let's go take a closer look. What is it? It's a canal, the Blackstone Canal. The area kids in our group are studying it. Oh, cool. That's another type of transportation. Caitlin, write it down. Okay. 1, 2, 3. That's 4. We only have 1 more to go. Well, Kevin's going to be here in a minute. Oh, there he is.
Hey, how'd you guys do on your scavenger hunt?
Good. We found 4, then we ran out of time.
So what do you have?
We found a bike path, train tracks, a canal, and a highway.
Well, you did really good. The only thing you missed was the river itself.
Huh? Oh my God.
Yeah.
It'd be so cool to see all the people who use this place as a way of transportation a long time ago.
my face.
What you're doing is saying invasive, that means they take over wherever they go.
We saw evidence of all these things. Well, except for the mills.
Wow.
After a drop of about 10 feet. I think you probably want me to do that over again.
I can do it, I think.
But I don't want to look at, I don't want to look at Ev down there, do I?
No.
I'm sorry, I just forgot my line.
Up and over the hill. Oh, I blew that line. Sorry.
Wait, I'm not on the. Oh, yeah, I am.
Now it's almost like a small hurricane. Okay, good.
Now look at Melanie.
Oh my god.
Come on, here.